Welcome to Past the Projections.
Fantasy experts, really. You should really consider us the pinnacle of fantasy football knowledge.
The host, Adam Skinner, the coach. There was a lot of debate on whether or not he would be that great. The guru, Thomas Lozano.
Kid's a playmaker, like you touched on there for a second.
Statman, Danny Pert.
Definitely a touchdown threat. Love the frame, love what I saw from him.
The wizard, Chris Roth.
Solid player with good floors.
The coach, the guru, the statistician, and the wizard. Talking fantasy football, Dynasty League specifically.
I just come here because I like to talk. And if you want to listen to me, it's completely on you.
That's a fair sentiment, Thomas. If you want to listen to us, please, just use your ears. Listen to what we have to say. You don't have to, but I'm glad you're here with us. Past the projections, as you heard, Adam Skinner, Thomas Lozano, Danny Pert, Chris Roth, out in Colorado, beautiful state. Not as beautiful as California, but you guys will learn that one of these days. And the weather really just can't be. I was in the sun all weekend. I don't know about you guys.
Well,
were you outside at all?
Yeah, it was 60 degrees yesterday. It was beautiful.
With snow everywhere.
Last week we were not. It was brutal.
You get the best of both worlds.
That's why I moved.
Also, the snow is a positive, not a negative. I mean, come on. We're Colorado.
50-50.
You could use the voice.
Today, however, we are talking quarterback carousel in the NFL, Dynasty League-wise. So there are a lot of moves made. Not a lot of moves made, but a lot of moves to be made. Already 2 deals done. Definitely some more coming up. And we will be talking about each of those and how it affects each of their respective teams. But we're going to start with the obvious choice and the obvious deals that are done. The Matthew Stafford, Jared Goff trade. Matthew Stafford traded to the LA Rams for Jared Goff, a first and a third. A lot given up for 7 years of difference in a quarterback. Stafford's 33, Goff's 26. And honestly, stat-wise, you can kind of compare them. But I think we'll get into that.
Was it one first and a third or 2 firsts?
It was actually, so I'm looking at it right now, so it was 2 first rounds and a third.
2 first-rounders and a third. That's a lot and losing 7 years at the quarterback position. But what does this mean? Danny Pert, what do you think does this mean for the LA Rams getting Stafford? Obviously, they wanted him. What are they doing going forward?
No, for the Rams, I think we're looking at a team that's in cap hell right now. So they're a team that's not really looking to the future. So for a team that's doing that, a team that's mortgaged a lot of their first-round picks, they're a team that's looking to win now. And that's very obvious. And I think for most people, it's a clear quarterback upgrade. So, I mean, it has to be a clear upgrade to the receivers there. As far as the Lions, though, I think getting Jared Goff is somewhat underrated. Jared Goff is a guy that, when has been given protection, he is known to succeed. He's a guy that throws a great ball. Like, he throws a spiral. He throws a great ball. He really does. But the Lions are going to take a few years to, get a offensive line behind him. They're a young team that's rebuilding. They just can't wane his confidence. They can't bring somebody else in and hurt his confidence. I think Goff, with the clear reins in the Lions offense with DeAndre Swift, and hopefully they can bring some new wide receiver options in there, I think he'll be fine. The cap hit is absolutely brutal, but other than that, I think the trade makes sense for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, Thomas, what do you think?
The Rams this past year were, going about the season with the salary cap off, like in Madden. They were just handing out contracts left and right to everybody. So to kind of get out from Jared Goff's contract is kind of nice, but you are still bringing in a similar contract in Matthew Stafford and sending away 2 first-round draft picks, which I don't know if the Rams even know how to prepare for having a first-round draft pick. They haven't had one since, I don't know, 2015, 2014.
2017.
2017? Okay. So 4 years without a first rounder. And one of those in 2016 was Jared Goff, I think, was the selection in the first round with number 2 overall? Number 3 overall? Jared Goff was number 1 overall. Oh my gosh. So just to be able to get out from under him and bring in someone like Stafford, who's seasoned vet, he's proved he's been able to get it done on the field. I wouldn't say it's a substantial upgrade to those receivers there, just because those receivers there have been able to post top 12 and top 14 numbers with Jared Goff at the helm. So with someone like Matthew Stafford, I wouldn't say that it changes them much. I would still say that they're top 12 and top 14 receivers, the both of them. Maybe get that tight end position involved a little more like they did the previous years. That started to kind of open things up for them a little bit. I don't think that necessarily, as far as real football goes, pushes them over the edge. You know, they're a divisional team, but getting Matthew Stafford, as long as he can maybe show up and win some of the big games, NFC is kind of wide open, but it's at the same time, I don't know that he's going to necessarily be the one who puts them over the edge. That defense looks stout. The offense, you know, there's playmakers at wide receiver. Running back is young, so we'll just see what Matthew Stafford can bring to the table here. As far as the Lions go, it's a solid move. You're getting 2 first-round picks, and you're getting a young quarterback who you can certainly still play. Can be serviceable for the next 2-3 years, if not great for your team. You know, it just depends on what they do at the wide receiver position. I believe Kenny Galladay is a free agent. I believe Marvin Jones is a free agent or wants to get out of Detroit to play for a contender. Tight end, you got Hawkinson, who I love. That guy's a great talent, can certainly be really, really good for Goff as a safety blanket. And then, of course, DeAndre Swift. He'll be easy to dump off to and easy to just kind of lean on as far as the running game goes. With Lions rebuilding, I would say this is probably best case scenario for sending out someone like Matthew Stafford.
And for Goff, I mean, he's in a situation where he's coming. We don't know what his wide receiver situation is going to be necessarily. I think we talked about this last week. All of his wide receivers are free agents. Galladay definitely does have the potential to be franchise tagged. So, I mean, we consider that. But if he's not franchise tagged, we're looking at Quintez Cephas as the only wide receiver under contract. Nobody else is. So, I don't know if it's an ideal situation for Goff to come into, but, you know, it's a fresh start. So, it's good for him.
What do we see, though, as far as fantasy? Do you trust now Stafford as a top 10 quarterback? Would you say this moves him into that realm?
I'd say as far as Stafford, I think people already looked at him as a borderline top 15. I think this does nothing but help him. So I think he's going to be in the top 12 quarterback conversation. As far as Goff's short-term value, I really think it definitely hurts him. The receiver situation there is not great. I mean, Swift is a great receiving running back, but I mean, his overall situation is definitely not great coming into it. So, I mean, I think he's probably outside the top 20 at this point in Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, having had Goff already kind of fringe 20 quarterback to kind of go to a place where they're going to want to run the ball more and where he may not have those playmakers like he did in LA, I think certainly bumps him outside of that, even outside of QB2 range in a flex league, you know, in a super flex league. I would say he's outside even top 24 consideration, considering even late in the season, he was very, very bad. As far as Matthew Stafford, I think he's always been a top 12 quarterback, you know, just perennially, except for the years he's been hurt. I mean, he's always throwing for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. You know, those are pretty solid numbers to be achieving year in, year out. So, to say it's going to bump him any higher than 10, 12, I don't think so. I think he's just going to kind of stick with what he's doing, but certainly the potential is there to, I don't know, his 10th or 11th year in the league have a career year, you know, have a breakout year. It's certainly possible, but I just don't necessarily see that happening with what LA likes to do as far as game planning and scheming goes.
So numbers-wise, interestingly, between the two of them, they were actually ranked 15th and 16th going into 2020. They also had similar numbers throughout the year. Stafford was the 15th ranked passer. Goff was the 18th ranked passer, but he had one fewer game. They both averaged 16.9 points per game. They very similar numbers. Goff had 20 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Stafford had 26 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Goff made up for it more on the ground. But you're looking at basically the same quarterback. How much of that do we attribute to the fact that the Lions were struggling with personnel all year and the Rams were a better team? Do you give Goff more the benefit of the doubt? Do you think actually now that Stafford and Goff switched that it improves the Rams that much?
100%. I think, honestly, in the grand scale of things, most GMs know Stafford is a better quarterback. If you look at the weapons last year, Stafford had Galladay. He was his main weapon. He didn't play most of the season. He had Swift as a good receiving running back, but he was not a workhorse running back. He had Adrian Peterson. He had other receivers that probably were not comparable to Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp and Higbee. I mean, these guys are definitely better players. So I think the weapons absolutely have a huge part in it. I think Stafford, while we all recognize he was the better quarterback, even with his lesser weapons, with his better weapons now, he definitely will be the better quarterback. Without a doubt.
Yeah. Thomas?
I think one thing that was just kind of failed to mention here, I don't have the numbers offhand. The Rams are taking a huge risk here because Matthew Stafford, I believe, has had his last 2 or 3 seasons cut short by injury. He's not getting any younger. He's one of those guys where it's like, how many more hits, how many more times can he take these big hits and continue to get up and come out and play at these elite levels? And if he's missing time because of shoulder injuries and thumb injuries and hand injuries, as a quarterback, you don't typically want to see that. But at the same time, he can certainly get it done when it comes down to getting it done. He's shown that with a lesser supporting cast in Detroit. So, I don't know that if he's going to put them over the top, but fantasy-wise, I feel he's going to have substantially better numbers than Stafford there, because the fact that Goff was able to put up number 18, quarterback numbers in that system, given he's not exactly the caliber of Stafford. I think that says that he should have a pretty good season as far as fantasy goes there. It's certainly better than number 15.
And as far as the boomer bust, real quick, as far as receivers, Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp had he had a down season. People had this guy in the top 30 overall players last year. He was not that great this year. I feel like we should look for a better season from Cooper Kupp. And then Robert Woods, I think, is the guy whose value probably skyrockets the most from this deal.
Well, interestingly enough, I was about to bring up both of those two. Robert Woods was actually the number 13 receiver on the season, even with Jared Goff and the inconsistent quarterback play. And Cooper Kupp was the number 26 receiver on the season, despite the fact that he was injured and didn't get the targets that he usually gets. So Goff did all right in that system. It seems, that he benefited from a much better team than Stafford, as you mentioned. Stafford didn't have the weapons around him. Galladay was out for a lot of the year. But Marvin Jones Jr., good to note that he was 18th overall as a receiver. Even with every team blanketing him in coverage, he still made the plays. Stafford still went that way. And DeAndre Swift was actually the 13th best running back as far as receiving stats go. Stafford knows how to get the ball to his playmakers, and he'll do a better job of that. I like what you guys are seeing. On to Wentz, the second deal that actually went down the NFL. Carson Wentz moving to the Colts. Philip Rivers retires. Apparently Jalen Hurts is the guy in Philly. We'll see how that actually transpires. But really the bigger part is Carson Wentz moving to the Colts. How does that affect the Colts as a franchise and fantasy-wise? Who do we need to look out for in those teams, Thomas?
I would absolutely love to see this work out for the Colts. you see all the potential that Carson Wentz does have. He's flashed it. We've all seen it. At the same time, he's flashed a lot of the bad of what he has to offer. So what I'm trying to say is I'm just hoping that he doesn't bring that play to this good team, because this team has basically, I don't want to say all the pieces in place, but they have all the right pieces in all the right places, and they're young and should be there for several years. Wide receiver, they need a little bit of help. Not sure if they're going to bring back T.Y. You got Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell, who are two young studs who could certainly benefit from having somebody like Carson Wentz who can get out of the pocket, extend plays, make plays with his legs, which in turn can open things up for them downfield. As far as Jonathan Taylor goes, I don't think that this changes much for him. I still see him as the workhorse back, getting 300 carries and hopefully even more targets. I believe he was targeted about 39 times this year. If we can see more targets where you're upwards of 50, 60 targets, I think that solidifies Jonathan Taylor's spot at the top of the RB rankings.
Danny?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there's any way to know that he's going to get more. Jonathan Taylor's going to get more running back targets coming from Wentz. But I kind of want to go more to the Philadelphia side of this. I think obviously a trade that had to be done. Parties weren't happy. I feel like, talking about a dynasty fantasy perspective, if Jalen Hurts gets the job, we're arguably talking about a guy who's a top 10 quarterback. And at this point, there's still some speculation. We don't know. The Eagles do want him to have they want a quarterback controversy. They want him to have some competition. But let's say, theoretically, Jalen Hurts gets the job. I don't know if you guys saw his games that he started, but not only was he a top 5 quarterback, we're talking about a guy who's getting 18 carries a game. And this is a quarterback we're talking about. 18 carries a game. This is without him passing well. He did not pass well at all. And don't get me wrong, we cannot expect that from him in the future. But any quarterback getting 15 to 18 carries a game is a guy who I'm going to be interested in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Put him on my radar as a QB1 a guy you can get outside the top 20 right now.
Yeah, you probably get him 20 rounds deep, really. He's falling into a lot of draft boards, depending on what the Eagles do in the draft.
And now, not to take anything away from what Jalen Hurts offers, and not to take anything away from the quarterback position, but there's a guy named Miles Sanders that still plays there. And I don't know exactly what that does for his value to be giving up, maybe not 18 carries moving forward, but anything from 12 to 15 carries to a quarterback certainly has to hinder the value of your running back just a little bit.
I'm not taking away from Miles Sanders' talent, but Adam, as an Eagles fan, is Miles Sanders ever going to be a workhorse running back?
Yes. Yeah, when they use him, he can easily be the workhorse there. That's
you
actually
think
the
he
plan.
has the frame and the build to be a future workhorse, 22 carry a game running back?
Debatable, but they want him to be, and they have no backups. It's Boston Scott behind him. He's good, but he's more of a spell back. So
you don't think he's more Jamal Charles than Adrian Peterson?
No. I think Miles Sanders is the guy. They brought him in there for a reason. He's a second-round draft pick. He's supposed to be the man going forward. And actually, his stats, he was the 21st ranked running back on the year, despite the fact that he missed 4 games and was ineffective in a couple others. If he had played all those games, he could have been as high as number 10. Miles Sanders is the real deal when he gets the ball, and that's kind of been the key in Philly. The problem is he doesn't get the ball.
But is he between the tackles, 20 carry a game guy?
Right. Well, here's the real question with the Eagles. Do you guys trust the Eagles as a franchise right now in fantasy? Would you take Miles Sanders in a fantasy draft high up, Thomas?
I would not select him with a first-round pick, no. I would still select him. I would say he's a high to mid second still. He's still very good talent. Like you're saying, if you can get him the ball, I mean, Danny dropped 2 names. He dropped Jamal Charles and Adrian Peterson's name. Neither one of their quarterbacks was rushing the ball 12 to 15 times. If that's going to happen in Philly with Jalen Hurts, I think that you drop Miles Sanders even more, because if he's only getting 14 carries a game, 14 to 15 carries, kind of essentially splitting carries and maybe getting minimal pass work, it's hard to really start to justify even that mid-second to late second. You start looking at early thirds, So, I mean, it sort of depends on what they want to do scheme-wise. Do they want to make Miles Sanders the man, or do they want to turn Jalen Hurts into Lamar Jackson 2.0,
And I'm not saying he's not the man there in the backfield. Like, he's definitely going to be the number one running back there. I just don't know if he's ever going to be more than a 15 to 17 carry guy, especially when they have Hurts there who can rush as much as he does. It's just... He's not really between the tackles guy. He's not a big body guy.
Well, that's why you pay Miles Sanders as the running back and you pay Jalen Hurts as a quarterback.
So Jamal Charles was one of those guys he has more of the Jamal Charles build. Jamal Charles in his prime only got 15, 17 touches a game. He wasn't a big touch guy. He was very efficient. And I see Miles Sanders being efficient because I think he's a very talented player. I think he's really good. He's good in the receiving game. He's good rushing outside. I just don't think he's good between the tackles. I don't ever see him as a workhorse necessarily.
Final question for you guys going in after this trade. Sounds like a lot of guys who were at their low points and maybe possibly moving up with 2 teams that are in flux right now. Who is our best buy low candidate in Dynasty? Are we talking Carson Wentz? Are we talking Miles Sanders? Or are we talking Michael Pittman? Who do you think? Danny?
Wow. All right. Carson Wentz, Miles Sanders, or Michael Pittman?
Who would be your best buy low this year?
Like I said, I really love Michael Pittman. I think he is probably a buy low. I mean, at this point, I think in this situation, I think Jalen Hurts is the guy you buy low. Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about if you're in a 10-team, 1-quarterback league, all right, we're talking speculation. We're talking a 14-team league, super flex league. I mean, guys, Jalen Hurts has the most upside out of this group, by far. Not even close. Yeah. I'm saying, he doesn't have to pass well, and he could still be, he could produce Michael Vick type of value just with his legs.
Yeah,
he doesn't even have to. He could be a failure as a passer, and he could still be a great fantasy quarterback. But he's also a guy with a wide range of outcomes: high floor, high ceiling, risky.
Danny, you sound like a guy who's trying to convince someone about a trade. I wonder who you're talking to at this point with this Jalen Hurts deal. I'm just curious. Off the top of my head, I can't really think about it, but I don't want to hear what you have to say about that. I want to hear what Thomas has to say right now, actually.
So just to quickly clarify, does it have to be out of those 3, or could it be anybody that we're kind of looking to buy low on?
I was saying in these teams, and we're talking about 2 teams in flux. We're talking about a lot of questions.
Yeah, on these 2 teams, absolutely.
If we're talking about Dynasty Fantasy Football, who are we looking to get out of this?
Honestly, it's one guy I think who's really being slept on. Danny mentioned Jalen Hurts, and I think that Jalen Hurts certainly makes plays with his legs, but he can also make plays with his arm. I think Jalen Reagor is certainly getting overlooked. There's nobody else playing wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. Who's going to catch these passes from Jalen Hurts? Alshon Jeffrey's a goner, but even if he's stuck around, he's overpaid and injured. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, oh my gosh. I don't even want to go into that. Travis Fulgham, he came in. He was a sweetheart there for a few weeks, but then eventually these NFL caliber DBs started to figure him out and shut him down. Ultimately, I think Reagor has the potential to still be a very big playmaker in this league, and it's going to come down to Jalen Hurts. Is he going to be that guy who's going to make these big plays for him? Or is he going to be the guy that tries to make these plays on the ground and maybe sometimes tries to make too much happen? But ultimately, I think that you can right now get somebody like Jalen Reagor, who's going into his second year, taken, I believe, in the first round last year. you can get him for pennies on the dollar right now. Nobody, I don't want to say nobody believes in him, because I believe he still has what it takes to certainly be flex consideration, if not creep into that low end wide receiver 2 spectrum. But he's certainly someone I would, in Dynasty, go out, maybe just throw a couple of lures out and see if you can get a bite or two for future third, just something off the end of the bench. I wouldn't mind having that guy on the end of the bench.
Couple notes on this. Neither quarterback, Wentz or Hurts, was in the top 20 of quarterbacks. No receivers on either team were in the top 40 of receivers this year. The only running back in the top 20 of running backs was Jonathan Taylor, obviously, with the season he had. And even the tight ends. Trey Burton had a good year, and Goddard was the best Eagles tight end at 20. So none of these players had great fantasy years. If you believe in this trade, this might be a good time to buy somebody low.
Jalen Hurts per game numbers were what?
We're done.
Fourth.
Jalen Hurts.
He was fourth when he played. We're done with that. All right, moving on. So those are the moves that have happened. There are many more moves to come, and none more than I think Deshaun Watson is probably the name at the top of everybody's charts right now. He doesn't want to be in Houston. They don't want to get rid of him. Who's going to cave is really my first question. And when they do, where could he move, and what are the implications for both the Texans and the new team he goes to? Danny, what do you think?
So many possibilities here. My first reaction to this is that Watson won't get moved. All recent speculation is that the GM is absolutely refusing to move him. As far as places I'd like to see him go, I'm a Broncos fan. I'd love to see him go to the Broncos. He has a lot of skill talent around there. I don't know if that's the most realistic, but that would actually be a great landing spot for his fantasy value in Dynasty. We have great young wide receivers, great young tight end. We have good running backs. Great spot for him to be in. Other than that, I think Miami is the place I like to look other than that. Obviously Tua would have to be involved in the trade. So it'd have to be Tua and picks. But if Miami lands Watson, they're a team that's going to compete for the AFC Championship this year. It's going to be tough with Kansas City and Buffalo there. But they're absolutely a team that if they get great quarterback play with that young defense, got a lot of cap space. We don't know what they're going to do. They're a scary team to think about with Watson, for sure. Also, like I said, the Broncos, we have a pretty good defense. It's going to be, we might be competing in the AFC West if we have Watson, but a lot of teams would be competing with Watson. So those are the two teams I think are the most realistic, and the two teams I think would be great spots for him.
Thomas.
Honestly, one team I don't think is getting talked about enough that is quietly seeking this trade, and I do kind of share that same sentiment with Danny. I don't think that Deshaun's going to get moved. Once they make him available, teams are always going to go for him, but I think they're going to be hard-pressed to make him available, given that they've already traded away or released so many assets just as a whole over the last year and a half. But one team that I don't think he would mind even going there, that I wouldn't mind seeing him go to, would be the Raiders. The Raiders, they're young. They have young playmakers at the skill positions. Tight end Darren Waller led the league. I think he was second in the league in receiving yards behind Travis Kelce at the tight end position, but still plays just as well as a wide receiver. You got Henry Ruggs there, who's another one of those guys like Jalen Reagor. He can certainly rip the top off a defense, allowing those playmakers underneath to do what they do. And then you got a young guy like Josh Jacobs. He may not be 100% sold as the bell cow there, but certainly serviceable enough to handle 20 touches and do what he can with them. Maybe they don't involve him enough in that pass game. But I think if you were to bring someone like Deshaun in behind arguably one of the best offensive lines in the league, maybe bring a couple more playmakers in at wide receiver, They could certainly look to be very competitive there in the West, the same way that the Broncos would if they were to make the move. So it's just one of those teams that I don't think is being discussed enough as a place where he could go if he were to be made available.
Dynasty-wise, you have Brandon Cooks, you have David Johnson. What are your thoughts at this point, Thomas?
I don't have a good fantasy team.
Yeah, definitely. I would have jumped out the window already, with David Johnson. I mean, if they're starting on my team, definitely, kill me now. But
Brandon Cooks was sneakily the 17th ranked receiver last year.
Brandon Cooks certainly gets shit on.
Good luck with your future in fantasy.
He certainly gets shit on. He definitely is consistent. He brings it every time he plays, but that's where the concern always comes. Is he going to play? He's always running into issues, whether it's hamstrings, ankles, concussions. It's always something you kind of have to worry about with him, and he could certainly be one head injury away from just never even playing again.
He's played with Breeze in his prime, Watson in his prime. Like, give him a bad quarterback. Like, come on, man.
He played with Brady. Like, no, he's had great seasons. He's had great seasons.
He's had amazing quarterback play.
As far as David Johnson, he's certainly had a resurgent year after kind of being written off. I want to say he finished as a top 15 running back, if I'm not mistaken, Adam. But again, he's just not one of those 19.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, still RB2. But the fact that he just continues to decline further and further down the rankings, whether or by production, it's just it's one of those. Yeah, I mean, if you can sell high and get a second rounder for David Johnson, I'm in. Otherwise, for dynasty purposes, I'm not keeping that guy on my team.
Yeah, David Johnson, 19th overall. He only played 12 games, and he probably would have been in the top 15 if he had played all of them, but really not. Those guys are really game changers. And I don't think any of us think Deshaun Watson's value will go down no matter where he goes.
No, not at all.
He makes every team better. Moving on to...
I gotta say I feel personally attacked because I do have David Johnson and Brandon Cooks on two separate teams. Personally attacked.
I have Brandon Cooks too. That's actually part of my question.
I'm surprised you said anything. I would have just kept that to myself, probably.
Moving on to another situation that I think Thomas will be a fan of, the Dak Prescott Dallas Cowboys situation. What are the Cowboys doing? Which also brings up Russell Wilson because he has mentioned that he wants to be there, and there's a possibility of a trade with that. What happens in Dallas, Thomas? With all your Dallas knowledge, what do you think?
Ultimately, I believe Dak is throwing bombs to Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup next year and for the next several years. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say that trade can happen because I'm not Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones has always been known to want to make a splash, whether it be in free agency or whether it be in the trade market. So it would not shock me or surprise me at all, nor would I be unwelcome to that. I would not mind seeing Russell Wilson throwing bombs to the three guys I just mentioned for that reason, because this offense can certainly produce for the quarterback, as we've seen in the past with Dak Prescott the last 2 years, even the years before that with Tony Romo. The offense as a whole, even in Dallas with Jason Garrett there, I know he's not there anymore, but they seem to still run the same scheme. They can be quarterback friendly once you start to finally let it loose a little bit. Ultimately, I do see Dak back in Dallas, but wouldn't be surprised to see the swap there.
Danny?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is also a lot of speculation. What I've heard right now is Dak for Wilson, and then the Cowboys will have to throw in a first-round pick. I don't think either teams are going to do that. That's pretty far out. But hey, if Dak was in Seattle, let Dak cook, man. Yes,
we know Dak can cook. We know Dak can cook.
We have DK. I mean, like, Dak could cook there. Like, I mean, who cares about Russell cooking? Dak could cook over there. But, I mean, I think that's absolutely hearsay. I don't think that's going to happen. I think if they're going to do it, I mean, Seattle, the only reason they would do it is to go in a full rebuild mode, run game mode. But I don't think I literally think this is just absolutely hearsay to talk about at this point.
Well, then how about fantasy value? We're talking Dallas Cowboys. We don't know what the quarterback situation is moving forward. Are you worried at all if you own any Cowboys, Danny?
No, so I mean, right now, if that trade was actually made, I think if Russell Wilson went to Dallas, I think they would let him throw a lot. So I don't think this helps Zeke's value. The main reason right now, what I've heard is the coach in Seattle and Russell Wilson are basically on a whole different tier about their team's outlook. Russell Wilson obviously wants it to be a passing team. Pete Carroll wants to be a running defensive team. So that's kind of, I think, where they're not really in line. And also, Russell Wilson, I think, has taken a little much too control. He's taken some control of the organization. I think he kind of wants to play GM there. And I think Pete Carroll is also one of those guys who's, a little controlling. He wants to run game defense. He doesn't necessarily want to throw the ball a lot. So I don't know if Russ Wilson fits that system. But also, as a Seattle owner, do you really want Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson? Or, I mean, I feel like Russell Wilson's a little more valuable to the franchise than Pete Carroll. But
yeah, a lot of questions for two teams that had a lot of great stats on offense. We're talking about two of the top receivers in the league, and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, 7th and 8th overall. Amari Cooper, 15th, with no consistent quarterback play. CeeDee Lamb was 22nd. Running backs, I mean, Zeke speaks for himself at 11th overall, even though he had a down year. Chris Carson was at 16th, even though he missed 4 games. I mean, there's a lot of offensive talent, a lot of numbers, and then quarterback-wise, Russell Wilson, obviously, 6th overall. Dak was number 1 before he was hurt. Do we worry about any of these offenses? I mean, we're talking a lot about this Russell Wilson for Dak Prescott move. Do you trade for any Dallas players or trade away Dallas or Seattle players at this point, Thomas?
I don't. Just because, let's say hypothetically that trade does happen, I don't hate either team's fantasy outlook doing a Dak for Russell swap. I really don't. I still love the wide receivers in Dallas. I still love what Zeke's going to do. If Zeke's down year is number 11 overall, I'll take it. And, if you're telling me he's going to rebound off of that, okay, great. We have a top 10 running back on our hands with top 20 wide receivers all around and a top 5 quarterback winging it around. In Seattle, you got DK Metcalf, who in Dynasty is arguably the number 1 wide receiver to own as far as Dynasty goes right now. And just well, again, like I said, it can be argued that he's number 1. But as far as Danny kind of mentioning Russell trying to take hold of the GM position in Seattle, just one thing to point out: if Russell is as important as that franchise says it is, why don't they protect him? He was, I believe, second most sacked last season, and I think 3rd most the year before that. How much you love this guy? He's your franchise guy, but you want to let him just take a beating like that year in, year out? Eventually, that starts to take a toll on your, I think, psyche, because they're telling you one thing to your face, and then they're doing another on the field there.
In all fairness to the Seahawks, I think a little bit of that is Russell Wilson's style of play. I think he's always the guy that you give him a great offensive line, he's going to be sacked quite a bit. He likes to, rush. He likes to get out.
Have they ever had a great offensive line, though?
No, they never have. I'm saying he's always going to be one of those guys that gets sacked a lot.
What did Dallas do? Dallas had arguably one of the best offensive lines for several years running, and even still now, they still have some of those pieces there that still is a good core.
That's why Dak didn't get sacked a lot. I'm saying Russell.
That's the point I'm trying to make. He doesn't want that. He doesn't want to get hit. Protect him like you say you care about him, if that's what you truly feel.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see moving forward. Seattle obviously they both are in great offensive situations. Both teams have issues on the other side of the ball, but numbers wise, you can't argue with any of the players on either team, and I don't think any of us are buying or selling at least any of those players. It's pretty much a good year.
I wouldn't mind buying me some Zeke. I think people are still kind of down on Zeke, and if like you said, if number 11 overall, if that's his down year, I want to buy in on that.
And that's the funny part, honestly. In dynasty leagues, you probably couldn't even get number 11 value for him, which was literally his lowest point in his career. But it would be hard to get that. So, I mean, I agree with him. I wouldn't put him in the top 5, but I'd also say he's not a guy you should be giving up for top 20, 25 value. That's ridiculous, man. His situation's only going to improve.
Moving on to one of my favorite situations in the league, actually, the New Orleans situation. What's going on with Drew Brees? And then we're talking about some premier fantasy assets on that team. Are they going to be okay? Do we panic if we're Alvin Kamara owners? Are we panicking if we're Michael Thomas owners? I'm panicking a little bit about what's going on there because even when Taysom Hill was in there, they still produced, but it wasn't the same. Danny, what are your thoughts?
So this is one I love. The Saints, so we're assuming Drew Brees is retired. At this point, we have a couple assumptions. If Jameis Winston is there, I do not hate the wide receiver situation there. I would not knock Michael Thomas that far down the wide receiver rankings. If we have anybody else, there's a few, any of these QB carousel guys we have in here, I would probably hate it. Taysom Hill, I would definitely hate it. If we're assuming Taysom Hill is coming in here and being the starter at quarterback this year, Michael Thomas's value should absolutely plummet. Kamara's value should absolutely plummet.
So with all the unknowns, if you have Michael Thomas, if you have Jared Cook, if you have Alvin Kamara, what do you do?
At this point in Dynasty, if I had Kamara is tough because he's always going to get the looks. Even in a bad offense, bad quarterback, he's going to get some targets. He's going to get rushes. Michael Thomas, I am scared to death of in Dynasty, to be honest. Like, he's one of the guys I think some people might have him in their top 5, top 10 right now. Me personally, he's like closer to 25, 30. I think he's absolutely one of the scariest guys to own in Dynasty right now. I really, really do. I would sell so high on him right now in Dynasty. Oh my God, make me an offer.
Thomas,
Give me anything for Michael Thomas. Give me a first.
Make me an offer. Just to kind of continue on that, I think we kind of saw that in our own personal leagues this year. People were getting out from under Michael Thomas when they could, just because I don't think that there's a sell high point anymore. I think people kind of saw the worst of Michael Thomas, and it's scary because it's not good. He had 0 catches week 17. 0 catches. Are you kidding me?
So guys, you gotta agree, like Michael Thomas is probably consensus with everybody, probably the widest range of outcomes, like as we think of him. Some people might still think of him as a top 5 receiver. Some people might think of him as not in the top 30.
So we're getting off track.
Like, there's very few people who can.
We're getting off track here.
No, if the same situation.
If the quarterback is Taysom Hill, I'm also scared to death of Alvin Kamara. If the quarterback is Jameis Winston, I don't move Kamara much. I don't say that I'm going to bump out Michael Thomas any. But at the same time, you also got to figure out what else you're going to do there, a playmaker. Who else is there? Emmanuel Sanders? Jared Cook is a free agent? What else do you do? Like, yeah, Michael Thomas is there, but who's his quarterback going to be throwing to next year?
Well, I mean, for dynasty-wise, we're talking Michael Thomas this year was ranked the 95th ranked receiver. He only played 7 games. Definitely had a horrible year, but 0 touchdowns. That's a big fat part of his game. Why would you sell him or would you sit on him? He seems to me like a candidate that you would actually sit on and wait and hope that he can rebound, because at this point, everyone knows the quarterback situation is in the air, and you're not going to get the value that Michael Thomas will bring. Why would you sell him at such a low point, Thomas?
I mean, I would never sell on him right now. Like, if I owned him, I would never sell on him. I mean, it's like I would sell for anything I could get. If I owned him, I would take anything.
Your name's Thomas now. All right. I don't see another quarterback coming to New Orleans and peppering Michael Thomas with targets the same way that Drew Brees did.
Never happened.
I just don't see. I think it was 10.9 targets, basically like 11 targets he was getting from Drew Brees.
It's not going to happen.
I don't see it happening again. If Jameis Winston comes in, maybe 7-8 targets. But even then, that's not Michael Thomas's game. He's a PPR monster. He's not going to make the huge plays, the big explosive plays. He's not a yak monster. He's the touchdowns and receptions guy. And if you take away the receptions, you got to pray for touchdowns. And if he doesn't get touchdowns, who is Michael Thomas?
And to be honest, they're kind of the opposite type of quarterbacks. Breeze likes to dink and dunk to his running backs, throw short yardage plays to his receivers, which Michael Thomas and Kamara obviously eat up. Winston's the opposite, man. Winston loves to go deep downfield. He's not a dink and dunker. He's not doing that. So, I mean, I think it clearly hurts those two guys. That's assuming Winston is the quarterback. But, like I said, even with Hill, it definitely affects Kamara. We've seen that the last few weeks. It 100% does. And Thomas, I think it does too. But
that's why I did kind of open up with no quarterback is going to come in peppering Michael Thomas that way. I just don't think it happens.
If you can get top 15, 20 receiver value for Michael Thomas in a Dynasty League, I think absolutely so.
I think it's too late.
I'm not saying you can. I'm saying if you can,
here's one.
Do it.
Here's one real quick off shoot. Juju Smith-Schuster or Michael Thomas?
Oh, right now going forward? I still take Thomas.
Yeah. Okay.
Those are two of my least favorite receivers in Dynasty, man. I probably have both those guys so much lower than everybody.
One guy's, I believe, 6 years younger, or 4 years younger.
Yeah,
I believe Juju.
I know. I'm
the younger there.
As much as I hate Juju, I'd take a shot on him just because of the age.
Wow. So both of you hate him.
Well, you could end up in a very great position.
It's also like, are we competing for a championship in the next year or two, or are we just absolutely rebuilding and looking to the future? You know, if I'm going to rebuild, I take Juju. If I'm going for it next year, I take Thomas.
Ultimately, yes, sell Thomas, hold Kamara, and who knows who will be the quarterback in New Orleans.
So my argument for selling Kamara right now is like you get a ton for that guy right now. You get a ton for him. So sell Kamara.
Yeah. I mean, both right now. Kamara was the number 2 running back in fantasy, even with the bad quarterback situation, but he only had 187 carries. He really wasn't given the ball on the ground. He just gets his
touchdown machine.
Story of his career.
Touchdown machine.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
28 touchdowns.
He's only going to regress. It'll be his best.
Another team in the same division that I'm curious about at the quarterback position, the Carolina Panthers. Teddy Bridgewater was there last year. Is he going to be back? And they are being active in the market, talking to a lot of teams. They do have a nice draft pick sitting high at 8 in the draft, and there are a lot of quarterbacks on this board. Will they move up? What does that mean for Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, etc. moving forward? Thomas, what are your thoughts on the Panthers and their quarterback situation?
Everything that I've been reading up to this point, they want to make a very, very strong play for Deshaun Watson, just like every team does, I'm sure. But at the same time, I believe that they would still be able to get one of the top QB prospects in this year's draft if nothing materializes with Watson. I don't see them targeting anybody else other than Watson as far as the trade market goes. With that 8 pick, they're certainly going to look to take one of those top 6 QB prospects if they can't get their hands on Watson. Which, as far as immediate returns on guys like DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, I don't think it hurts him at all. The guy, again, he's another one of those. He's a monster. In limited time last year, he proved why he was the number 1 running back in Dynasty. In the 2 previous years before that, he was a 1,000 guy with 100 receptions each of those years. So I don't think that quarterback play is necessarily going to hinder what McCaffrey can do. As far as DJ Moore goes, I think he was off to kind of a slow start, had a little bit of his shine stolen by Robbie Anderson. But I think with a guy that you can bring in there that can build chemistry, build rapport with him, DJ Moore is still a playmaker that has top 12 potential written all over him. Just as long as you have a guy who's willing to get him the ball. And Teddy Bridgewater was able to do that, but obviously, as we saw, he favored the other guy just a little more. But I think if you bring in Deshaun Watson, obviously top 10 is the sky's the limit for the kid. If you bring in one of the young guys, be prepared to deal with speed bumps like you did this year. But I wouldn't count him out and knock him out of that top 12 quite yet because he just has too much potential.
Target-wise, DJ Moore had 118 targets. Curtis Samuel had 97, but Curtis Samuel had 11 more catches. Not nearly as many yards as DJ Moore, but on the year they were the same rank. They were one apart at 24 and 25. Danny, what are your thoughts on the Panthers?
Yeah, DJ Moore is to get it out there, DJ Moore is much more talented at receiver. The Panthers are in an interesting spot. I think, Bridgewater is not the answer. I don't think any team thinks he is the answer as far as a playoff competitor. He's not ever going to lead a team to the playoffs, or he's not going to win a Super Bowl. He's not that type of guy. And they're also a team that has the 8th overall pick, which is a very interesting spot for some of these rookies. Trevor Lawrence is going to go 1. We have Zack Wilson. We have Justin Fields. I think those are guys that are actually in play here at 9. And from what I've seen so far, I think he's one of those guys. They've already made offers of the 49ers. It's not even for Garoppolo. The 49ers will consider him as a backup quarterback. But I think the Panthers are one of those teams that's 100% ready to get rid of Bridgewater. They really don't want him. And they're a team that's ready to rebuild. They're in rebuild mode. And if they have one of these top 3 quarterbacks available at number 9, I think they're absolutely going to take him, and they're looking to unload Bridgewater. And as far as DJ Moore's talent goes, I think he's really great. If one of these quarterbacks hits with Carolina, DJ Moore is going to hit in the future in Dynasty. DJ Moore has already been a great top 2 wide receiver with subpar quarterback play. And if he can get good quarterback play, DJ Moore's future is huge.
One quick thing about DJ Moore as well. So some of these receivers we're talking about, Curtis Samuel is 24 years old. Juju is also 24. Michael Thomas, 27. DJ Moore is 23.
Yeah,
he is young. He's done already at this point, and he's only 23.
And that's what I'm saying. Even if it takes 2 or 3 more years for DJ to get good quarterback play, we're still looking at a 25-year-old elite talent with good quarterback play. His upside is huge still. And a lot of people are still sleeping on him.
Yeah. Christian McCaffrey, what are the with him in Carolina? Does it matter who's the quarterback position, or is he still number 1?
No. He's number 1.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters. Christian McCaffrey, when he played, he was the number 1 running back. And
he's a stud. Yeah.
With his injuries, he's going to come back.
He's matchup proof. He's QB proof.
Yeah,
he's whatever.
If you have him, be happy you have him in Dynasty, and if you don't, then do what you can.
If you're rebuilding, sell him for 2 compounds and a goddamn RV.
Exactly. Get the whole boat.
Buy low on Christian right now, honestly. If you can, if anybody's selling low,
I doubt it.
If anybody's selling low,
I doubt it.
Buy it.
It's hard.
Buy it.
Couple quick QB situations I want to touch on. Let's talk about the rookies really quick. Trevor Lawrence going to the Jaguars for almost 100%. And the Jets, what are they going to do with the QB situation? Where are these QBs going to land? What does that mean in fantasy for players like DJ Shark, James Robinson, Sam Darnold? Who knows what's going to happen with each of these players? What are we looking at moving forward with Trevor Lawrence in the draft? Danny.
As far as the Jaguars go, with Trevor Lawrence, he's undeniably one of the best quarterback prospects that we've seen in years. Laviska Shenault, I think, is an interesting buy low. He's a guy, like we've talked about earlier, he's a yak monster. Not really worried about his floor, but as far as the ceiling, that only improves with Trevor Lawrence. One guy I really like here, though, is DJ Shark. I mean, he's another guy we could possibly talk about as he's a buy low for sure. I think a lot of his owners are absolutely freaking out on him right now, like after his off season. He had a great season 2 years ago, struggled last year. With some great quarterback play, though, this year, I think he'd be all right. He had some great underlying stats. I think DJ Moore was one of the few guys who averaged over 17 yards of reception and had under a 5% drop rate, which is underliers I like to see as far as talent. And I think that he might have struggled this year because of quarterback play. But those underlying numbers do show that he still has, he's very talented. And if Trevor Lawrence can step in and, bring that talent to the table, I think DJ Shark is absolutely a buy low. And I think a lot of people would sell low on him right now. So I'd absolutely get in on him. Who else do we have? We have, Zack Wilson's another guy that's coming in. As far as prospects, Zack Wilson, I think, could be a Trevor Lawrence type prospect. He kind of reminds me of Josh Allen a little bit. He has all the intangibles, a little bit of Justin Fields also has a lot of upside, but Zack Wilson is another guy. Some of these other teams we're going to be talking about here soon should probably be looking to him.
Yeah, Thomas, what do you think on the Trevor Lawrence situation and quarterbacks at the top of the draft?
Obviously we know Trevor Lawrence, I believe, is the only sure thing, right, that we know. Because everything after that, we don't know for sure. Everything after that is speculation. We don't know what's going to happen after that. We know Trevor Lawrence is going number one. If that doesn't happen, everyone in the front office at Jacksonville should be fired. But as far as DJ Shark goes, just to kind of touch a little bit more on that, I believe he's 100% a big-time buy low. Just to be averaging, I believe, almost 9 targets a game, and to be averaging 17 yards of reception, you 100% welcome that on your team as a wide receiver 2, with potential of putting up wide receiver 1 numbers. One of the guys I was actually kind of excited to talk about coming into tonight's podcast was actually Sam Darnold of the Jets, at least for now. Just because I believe Sam Darnold does have what it takes to certainly bump up into high-end QB2, low-end QB1 status, just depending on where he lands. And now if he stays in New York, the reason why I believe he's going to make that big of a leap forward, and I think we've all talked about it before, it's going to be the post-Gase production. I believe that Robert Saleh is going to figure out that he's got a playmaker on his hands there at the QB position, and they can go ahead and bolster their roster with something else at that high pick. Now, at the same time, if they want to take a quarterback with that high pick at number 3, I don't blame them at all, and they want to trade Darnold. But what I'm saying is, even if Darnold does go to another team, again, it goes back to just him being able to be the playmaker that he is for a team that may actually support him a little better than the Jets have over the first 3 years of his career.
Interesting at the top there. A couple notes on what you guys were talking about. The Jaguars receivers actually were 46th, 47th, and 49th. That would be Laviska Shenault, Keelan Cole, and DJ Shark. Shark led the team in targets, averaged 13 yards per catch, but he did eat up a lot of yardage as far as when he did get the ball in his hands. None of them lit up the number, or they all had 5 touchdown receptions. A lot of potential there on a team with a young stud at quarterback.
Questionable QB play all year. So, to be able to still reel in 5 touchdowns, I think you count your blessings.
2 quick questions. Denzel Mims for the Jets. Are we worried about him moving forward? Danny?
Man, his opportunity is going to be very dependent on the quarterback situation. Right now, I'm not sold on Darnold. I'll be honest. I also don't think he's incapable of being a starting quarterback in the league. I think they should, explore their options. At the same time, picking number 2, you have, arguably Zack Wilson and Justin Fields are franchise-changing quarterbacks. If either of those guys hit, I love Mims in that situation. let's touch a little bit more on this rookie class real quick. I mean, I think we arguably have 6 quarterbacks who are going to have potential to be starters in the NFL. We have Kyle Trask, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Zack Wilson, Trevor Lawrence. I think Trey Lance is one of those guys that's a fantasy darling. If he ends up getting a starting job, he could be great. Mac Jones is the opposite. He's been shooting up draft boards lately, but the guy doesn't run at all. So as far as fantasy dynasty, I don't really like the guy at all. The top 3 guys on the board, though, Justin Fields and Zack Wilson. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is assumed. Justin Fields and Zack Wilson could be franchise guys, absolutely. With any of these teams that we're going to be talking about, those guys could be starters on any of these teams very soon. So I mean, I really like the I mean, if these guys get a starting gig, let's say Trevor Lawrence, Zack Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, all these guys could be great in dynasty fantasy football.
Thomas, thoughts?
Yeah, just kind of bring it all the way around back to the question originally. Denzel Mims, I'm not too concerned about no matter the outcome. Whether they keep Darnold, I still think that he's got the potential to be a wide receiver 1. We talked about this briefly when we did the redraft. Kid missed the first 7 games of the season, and then had spotty time with Darnold after that. So I think if you give him a full season with Darnold, get him a whole new season with Darnold, I can expect really big things there. But on the flip side of that, if they go ahead and ship Darnold and bring in one of these younger prospects, I believe he was the 2nd youngest receiver in the draft, Denzel Mims. Stat check me on that one. But the fact that he'd be able to build a rapport with whoever they do bring in, still it speaks volumes for what he can achieve in that offense as being the number 1 receiver, because they don't have, they don't have anybody else making plays for them at the wide receiver position. As of right now, they don't even have people making plays for them at the running back position. So they certainly have a lot of holes to fill. But Denzel Mims, I'm not too concerned one way or the other with his production, or at least with his potential moving forward. But it's all dependent, again, on what happens at that quarterback spot.
Sam Darnold did not throw a single touchdown pass to Denzel Mims this year. And, like, the Jets' situation can only improve.
What's the point of that?
I'm just like him. If Sam Darnold is a quarterback there next year, I mean, like, what did you see that you liked with the Denzel Mims Sam Darnold?
What did I just say? They had spotty time together after him coming back after 7 weeks. Darnold was missing time. Denzel Mims missing time.
They played most of the season together. They did not. It was not a single touchdown pass between them.
Can we stat check that?
Yeah,
how many games did they play together?
I know
there wasn't a single touchdown pass between them. Exactly great chemistry, but
he's actually one of the older players drafted there. So it's that first check we're doing there. So 23, Justin Jefferson, 21, multiple players under 23.
Okay. I know Mims played 9 games. Darnold played 12. But I know Darnold played more at the beginning of the year. Mims played more at the end. So I'm guessing they maybe had 5 or 6 of that overlap. But I like Thomas's point on this. This was the COVID year. Don't forget, there wasn't a lot of preseason time. They didn't get to work together. This was a rookie coming in who was hurt and didn't get on the field. They did not have a lot of time together.
Adam, what's the excuse for all the other rookie wide receivers blowing up then?
The fact that they were with their teams and not hurt. Denzel Mims wasn't on the field. Don't forget, he didn't start the year on the field. He was injured, so he didn't get the time. The little time they did have together to actually be on the field and working out. I think that was a big factor for Mims. But regardless of Mims moving forward, let's talk about these quarterbacks in the rookie draft. That's my other question for you. If you are drafting in this Dynasty League draft, we'll say a 3-round, where are you taking Trevor Lawrence? Where are you taking obviously it depends on where they land, but just in general, if you say you need a quarterback or a relative on a quarterback, where in the Dynasty expansion draft are you taking Trevor Lawrence, Zack Wilson, and Justin Fields? The top 3 guys, pretty consensus studs across the board. Thomas,
are we talking startup or like a startup
Dynasty expansion? We're talking about 3-round expansion draft. What round do you, if you want to get Trevor Lawrence, what round are you considering him in?
Superflex or 10-team or 14 or
standard 12-team league?
12-team regular, not Superflex.
Standard 12.
I'm still taking Trevor Lawrence in the first round. If what everybody is saying is true, if he's Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and John Elway, all mixed into one, how can you not spend a first round draft pick on somebody like that, whether it be towards the end of the first round or even the middle of that first round? Depending on where your team's at, if you want to spend the top end of the round on Trevor Lawrence, not going to hold it against you, but obviously, in order to spend that draft capital on him, you wanna hope that this all pans out the way that everybody says that his career should be panning out.
Danny, what do you think on those quarterbacks?
I mean, yeah, Trevor Lawrence in a 12-team regular league is going to be probably a late first-round pick. I think this guy, he's definitely a generational talent, so his floor is going to be very high. Like I said, in a 12-team league, a one-quarterback league, people are going to have preferences on like how they feel about quarterbacks. In Dynasty, though, Lawrence is one of those guys you can give. He'll be there for 15 years. He might not ever be a top 3 quarterback in the league, but he's pretty safe as far as prospects goes. Zack Wilson, I think, is actually like a phenomenal prospect, but I think with him it depends more on his situation. I think he's also one of those kind of guys like we looked at like Justin Herbert last year, which a lot of people were probably sleeping on. I think Zack Wilson's more that type of like more of a Josh Allen type of prospect, where it's a guy like he has all the tools in the world and could hit high, but we don't know what his downside is. So he's a little scary. Fields like solid, and like a lot of these teams we're talking about that need quarterbacks. There's 19 teams that could have a quarterback change this year. I think 7 of these teams are in the top 14 picks. Justin Fields is another guy who could be a franchise guy very easily. I feel like Zack Wilson is probably the highest upside guy besides Lawrence, and that's not even close. I think he could be a franchise guy for sure.
So would you consider them second round picks, high end, low second round? Where do you think you would take each of these guys?
I think Trevor Lawrence is a late first for sure, and Zack Wilson's probably more of a late second. Justin Fields also a late second, and I think Mac Jones is one of those guys like is a better NFL prospect than fantasy prospect. I can see Trey Lance being drafted in the 3rd round this year, and like he's kind of he's a running quarterback, so he has fantasy upside. I don't know if he's ever going to get a starting job in the league, but if he does, he could definitely be a top 20 quarterback just for his legs.
Thomas,
I love Trey Lance. I love Trey Lance's upside for a 3rd round pick.
Are we good? Are we good? So certainly mid to late first on Trevor Lawrence, but with as much talent at the skill positions in this draft, or just even in an expansion, I'd say we'd see a run late second into early 3rd on the rest of these quarterbacks.
Yeah, definitely keep them in your mind. Quarterback situations moving forward, like you said, Danny, there are 19 teams in this league that could be seeing a quarterback change. We're not going to cover everything tonight, but one last quarterback situation that each of you finds interesting and that you want to talk about before we get out of here. What do you guys think we haven't mentioned today that's worth mentioning, at least talking about a little bit more in depth? Danny, you definitely have some more ideas on the subject. I see them stirring in your head.
I guess I'll retouch real quick on the Tua situation. So we're talking about possible Watson trades. Realistically, the Dolphins have the 3rd overall pick and the 18th overall pick. So I think, as a Houston GM, they're one of the few teams I probably work with. If you're going to deal me the 3-18 Tua, they have the assets to work with. So that's realistic. One of the other things we didn't really talk about tonight, though, is the whole the 49ers situation with Jimmy G. So this is up for speculation. I mean, I think a lot of us don't love Jimmy G. Like, we know he's not a great fantasy guy. And like I said, the 49ers have already speculated about Bridgewater as a backup. So, I mean, like, are they going with Jimmy G and Bridgewater, or are they going to, like, try to make a trade to get something better? Because I feel like the 49ers are also one of the teams that have a defense with Bosa coming back, and they had so many injuries last year. They have an absolutely amazing defense. If this team, with some of the offensive parts they have, Kittle, some of their wide receiver pieces, if they have a quarterback, this is a team we're talking about that's a Super Bowl contender. Unlike a lot of these other teams that we're speculating at a quarterback. The 49ers get somebody to replace Jimmy G. That's a a great replacement. Watson. I mean, we're looking at a team that's maybe favored in the NFC. It's kind of scary, but it's possible. But it could happen.
Yeah, worth noting. Thomas, what's your favorite situation you didn't touch too much on?
I wouldn't say necessarily favorite, but the one I'm most intrigued by, the New England Patriots. I just don't think that they're going to fly under the radar for too long. They've got about 60 plus mil, I believe, in cap space. And they're just, again, that franchise is just so used to the culture of winning. It'll be very interesting to see, one, who they do bring in under center, and two, what that's going to do for some of their fantasy producers that they do have at wide receiver. I know our running backs are getting a little older, and they got a couple guys that they really, really like there that are coming up. Damian Harris and, gosh, I can't remember the second guy's name. They just drafted him last year or the year before. I can't remember his name.
Sony Michel?
No, it was another guy similar to Sony Michel. But either way, their quarterback position is one that really intrigues me to see what they're going to go out and do, whether it be trade, free agency, the draft. They're always making moves in the draft on draft day, and so I'm very curious by that.
But Adam, can I ask you this? What team is going to be more in Super Bowl contention than the 49ers if they get Watson?
I mean, absolutely.
No other team that gets Watson.
Any team that
gets 49ers,
Watson.
The 49ers and the Dolphins, right? They're two teams that are contenders if they get Watson.
I agree. I'm very intrigued by the New England situation as well. I think that's a very good situation to keep your eye on. Jacoby Myers was an excellent young talent that could possibly come shooting up this year in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Maybe a potential trade target if you think they might find a decent quarterback.
Do you think the Patriots are contenders this year with Watson?
Hold on, we're not necessarily talking about we're not talking about contendership.
Hypothetical.
We're talking about like who's intriguing as far as the QB position, and even then, 49ers. I mean,
the Niners and the Dolphins.
They have a lot of work to do in their own division. So I mean, let's not making the wild card, let alone mortgaging your future for Deshaun Watson.
They're in a good spot.
We'll see.
I agree. I mean, all across the board, each of these teams, it's going to be interesting to see how the chips fall. We're still early. It's March 1st, so nothing has really even officially happened in the NFL. J.J. Watt was just signed. I guess that's something. But who knows what's going to happen in the future. Moving forward for us next week, we're actually going to be talking more about Jeopardy, actually, was our idea. We're going to play a game. I'm going to come up with a whole bunch of topics, a whole bunch of points, and these guys are going to have to try and answer some tough questions that I come up with out of my brilliance behind the headband, if you can see this on here.
I will prove that I'm smarter than him, and that you should listen to me.
One of your Jeopardy questions.
It'll be proven.
One of your Jeopardy questions should be who's going to see J.J. Watt 2 times next year and probably get sacked 3 or 4 times by him.
The San Francisco 49ers.
Jimmy.
I mean, it's going to be interesting. You're going to have to tune in to find out next week.
They're going to be tough, man. I'm telling you. The 49ers are going to have a good year this year.
Since 2016, Chandler Jones, J.J. Watt, sack leaders, they're now teammates.
They are.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting.
Nick Bosa coming back, though, baby. Nick Bosa, I'm sorry. Nick Bosa's coming back, baby.
Thank you guys for your analysis. We will figure out a Jeopardy for next week. Join us every Sunday night, although this was Monday. But Sundays moving forward talking Dynasty Fantasy Football with all the info you need. Past the projections, again, Adam Skinner here, Thomas Lozano, Danny Pert, Chris Roth behind the scenes taking care of everything. The coach, the guru, the statistician, and the wizard.
This guy's full of shit. He's not a believer in Jalen Hurts.
You got A.J. Dillon and Henry Ruggs, you know?
Oh, don't even. Nah, they're not. I'm with them at the same sentence.
And I didn't have to pay up.
Yeah.
So, Burrow.
How many guys do you have left on your
Yeah,
board?
who is left here?